Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Peter Alexander here in Washington. A busy week of confirmation hearings just kicked off with what's expected to be one of the most contentious ones of all. For President-elect Trump's pick to lead the Department of Defense, combat veteran and Fox television personality Pete Hegseth. Hegseth, who, if confirmed, will oversee more than 3 million personnel and an $800+ billion budget, came into today's hearing facing a series of questions about his experience, his ability to do the job, and his past comments about women in conduct, along with questions about his character due to allegations of sexual misconduct and reports of excessive drinking on the job, all of which he denies. It was notable then that the first question that Hegseth received from the Republican chairman of the Armed Services Committee today teed him up for an emotional and blanket dismissal of reports about his past conduct.
There was a coordinated smear campaign orchestrated in the media against us. That was clear from moment one. And what we knew is that it wasn't about me. Most of it was about President Donald Trump, who's had to endure the very same thing for much longer amounts of time. And he endured it in incredibly strong ways. So we, in some ways, knew it was coming. I'm not a perfect person, as has been acknowledged. Saved by the grace of God, by Jesus and Jenny. I'm not a perfect person, but redemption is real. And God forged me in ways that I know I'm prepared for.
Hegseth was also pressed multiple times in that hearing by female senators on the committee about his past comments that women should not serve in combat, a view that he articulated in his book and doubled down on as recently as a couple months ago in November.
What do you have to say to the almost 400,000 women who are serving today about your position on whether they should be capable to rise through the highest ranks of our military?
Senator, I would say I would be honored to have the opportunity to serve alongside you, shoulder to shoulder, men and women, black, white, all backgrounds, with a shared purpose. Our differences are not what define us. Our unity and our shared purpose is what define us, and you will be treated fairly and with dignity, honor, and respect, just like every man and woman in uniform, just like the men and women that I've worked with in my veterans organizations, to include when I was a headquarters and headquarters company commander in the Minnesota National Guard.
Well, I appreciate your 11th hour conversion.
My critiques, Senator, recently and in the past, and from personal experience, have been instances where I've seen standards lowered. What each and every one of them told me, and which personal instances have shown me, is that in ways direct, indirect, overt, and subtle, standards have been changed inside infantry training units, ranger school, infantry battalions, to ensure that
give
commanders
me one example. Please give me an example. I get you're making these generalized
meet
statements.
Quotas to have a certain number of female infantry officers or infantry enlisted, and that disparages those women.
Commanders do not have to meet quotas for the infantry. Commanders do not have to have a quota for women in the infantry. That does not exist. It does not exist. And your statements are creating the impression that these exist, because they do not. There are not quotas.
What I see is that there's a 32-day period in which you suddenly have another description about your views of women in the military. And I just want to know, what changed in the 32 days that the song you sang is not the song you come in here today to sing?
Senator, the concerns I have and the concerns of many have had, especially in ground combat units, is that in pursuit of certain percentages or quotas, standards have been changed. And that makes the combat more difficult for everybody involved.
Let me make a suggestion about what happened in that 32 days. You got a nomination from President Trump. Now, I've heard of deathbed conversions, but this is the first time I've heard of a nomination conversion.
Hegseth was also pressed on sexual assault allegations tied to a hotel encounter back in 2017, claiming that he was, quote, completely cleared. Listen.
You have admitted that you had sex while you were married to wife 2 after you just had fathered a child by wife 3. You've admitted that. Now, if it had been a sexual assault, that would be disqualifying to be Secretary of Defense, wouldn't it?
It was a false claim then and a false claim now.
If it had been a sexual assault, that would be disqualifying to be Secretary of Defense, wouldn't it?
That was a false claim.
So you
talking about a hypothetical.
So you can't tell me whether someone who has committed a sexual assault is disqualified from being Secretary of Defense?
Senator, I know in my instance, and I'm talking about my instance only, it was a false claim.
It was mostly Democrats on the committee who grilled Hegseth. The clear signal from Republicans there was that they are standing behind Donald Trump's pick. Going into this hearing, all eyes were on one Republican senator in particular, Joni Ernst, a veteran who initially expressed some uncertainty about Hegseth, but has since come under immense pressure from Trump supporters to fall in line. Ernst did not pose any particularly challenging questions today, instead using her time to secure commitments from Hegseth on the role of women in combat and sexual assault prevention in the military.
Let's make it very clear for everyone here today. As Secretary of Defense, will you support women continuing to have the opportunity to serve in combat roles?
Senator, first of all, thank you for your service, as we discussed extensively as well.
It's my privilege.
And my answer is yes, exactly the way that you caveated it. Yes, women will have access to ground combat roles, given the standards remain high.
Will you appoint a senior level official dedicated to sexual assault prevention and response?
Senator, as we have discussed, yes, I will.
So that was part of one of the key exchanges to watch today. And joining me now, our team of reporters, Sahil Kapur is on Capitol Hill. Courtney Kube is at her perch at the Pentagon. And Gabe Gutierrez is in West Palm Beach covering the Trump transition right now. Sahil, let's start with you. Walk us through what else sort of stood out to you from Hegseth's testimony today. How is it being viewed? How did he fare?
Yeah, Peter, watching the Republicans on that committee, it looks to me like Pete Hegseth is one step closer to becoming the next Secretary of Defense. I was particularly struck by what the warmth and the friendliness of the Republican reception he got. I think 1 month ago, this might have been a very different tone and tenor for Hegseth sitting at that committee across from those members. But a lot has changed politically in the last month. I was very struck by Joni Ernst not really challenging Pete Hegseth in any meaningful way, not having any kind of confrontation with Pete Hegseth. She looked like a senator who came into this hearing with the intention of getting to yes. She also began her questioning by entering into the record a letter from a Hegseth supporter making the case for him. He did have some tough moments, some tough questioning from Democrats, including most notably the moments you played from Tim Kaine questioning his personal indiscretions, his infidelity, talking about you've taken oaths to your ex-wives as well and not kept them. Why should we trust you? Connecting it to character. But the reality is Republicans have a majority on that committee. They have 53 votes in the Senate, and there are only 2 members on the Republican side who have any history of bucking their party. So it would take something pretty extraordinary for Hegseth to be scuttled. I did not see anything of that sort. So unless something changes between now and the next few days when he's expected to get committee and floor votes, he appears to be in shape. Finally, Peter, I think it was also notable the culture war rhetoric that we heard from Hegseth. He was kind of tugging at the MAGA heartstrings there by repeatedly lavishing praise on President Trump, repeatedly criticizing President Biden, the kind of rhetoric that I think is familiar to MAGA travelers about being a victim of a smear campaign, going after woke institutions. All of that stuff is deliberate. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he seemed to sort of parrot part of Donald Trump's talking points throughout the course of the campaign season, saying, hey, they're not going after me, they're going after you. He said, they're not going after me, they're really going after Donald Trump here. There has been a lot of a series of questions about Hegseth's FBI background check and the fact that his ex-wives and a woman who accused him of sexual assault did not provide any information. Given that, how did Democrats push him, and what more can you tell us about this sort of background check process? To be clear, not every one of those senators today had access to the background check. It was only the top Democrat and top Republican who were even briefed on it, right?
That's right. The most important thing to know about this background check is that it's not a legal requirement. It's a custom. So it only matters if 4 Republicans poke their head out and say, we're not voting for this nominee unless we get the full background check. Democrats have raised serious concerns that they don't think this background check is complete, that there are very clear instances in Pete Hegseth's past, individuals who have leveled serious accusations against him that you just mentioned who were not interviewed for this. So why is that the case? I think Democrats want answers there, but I haven't really heard anything from Republicans signaling that they're not ready to support Hegseth's nomination without that background check. This is all in the midst of a major pressure campaign by Donald Trump and his allies to get behind each one of his nominees. The sequence was Matt Gaetz was put up for Attorney General. That nomination was scuttled because Republicans indicated to Trump that that was a no-go. They weren't everyone going to support him. But after that, Trump made clear that he wanted every one of his other nominees confirmed, and that's where you got the threats, the primary challenges, the heavy political pressure on senators like Joni Ernst, who, by the way, is up for re-election in 2026. That's a non-trivial threat that she faces of a potential Republican challenge if she bucks Trump, and it looks like she's not going to be doing that.
Yeah, with Donald Trump, among others, saying that Elon Musk has tens of millions of dollars to put behind another candidate if necessary. Sahil Kapur on Capitol Hill, full week for you. Appreciate you starting it with us. Courtney, I want to have you get in on this conversation. What indication did Pete Hegseth sort of give us today about what kind of defense secretary he would be?
So we didn't actually hear a whole lot about various policies that he has. What is very clear is he will enact and he will whatever it is that Donald Trump wants to do here at the Pentagon, Peter. So two specific things we heard. He does intend to do a full review, as he said, of the senior military leaders to ensure, as he kept saying throughout the hearing today, that they made it to their positions based on meritocracy. That was a word we heard over and over during the long hearing today. The idea that these generals and admirals have reached their positions of military leadership through their own merit-based process. This is all based on his accusations and his claims that the military has focused too much on diversity initiatives and that people are no longer being promoted because of the merit of their work. Another thing that we heard is he does intend to review standards. That was another consistent theme throughout the hearing today, is when talking about women in combat, when talking again about promotions, that he believes that standards have been changed for women, and that because of that, he intends to fully review the standards and ensure that the U.S. military continues to be lethal. That was another word that we heard a lot today. The idea that the military needs to focus more on lethality than some of these social issues, as he said, that they have been focused on under the current administration, Peter.
Court, I want to play for you some of the exchange today between the Arizona Senator Mark Kelly and Hegseth on the allegations about Hegseth's drinking, his past behavior. Listen.
Memorial Day 2014, at a CVA event in Virginia, you needed to be carried out of the event for being intoxicated.
Senator, anonymous smears.
Just true or false? Very simple. Summer of 2014 in Cleveland, drunk in public with the CVA team.
Anonymous smears.
I'm just asking for true or false questions. True or false answers. An event in North Carolina, drunk in front of 3 young female staff members after you had instituted a no alcohol policy and then reversed it. True or false?
Anonymous smears.
December of 2014 at the CVA Christmas party at the Grand Hyatt at Washington, D.C., you were noticeably intoxicated and had to be carried up to your room. Is that true or false?
Anonymous smears.
Another time, a CVA staffer stated that you passed out in the back of a party bus. Is that true or false?
Anonymous smears.
In 2014, while in Louisiana on official business for CVA, did you take your staff, including young female staff members, to a strip club?
Absolutely not. Anonymous smears.
Courtney, what's interesting there is we have heard from Hegseth over the course of the last several months acknowledge that in the past he did drink sometimes a little bit more perhaps than he should, that he turned to alcohol as sort of an escape after he came back from serving overseas. You were a part of NBC's reporting about some of these concerns. How serious are the concerns? A lot of those were coming from within his own colleagues at Fox News about his drinking.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he's even vowed that he will not drink as Secretary of Defense.
Not another sip,
saying
he
that
said.
he'll treat saying he will treat this essentially as a deployment and not drink. So if he wasn't drinking before, why does he have to stop drinking now? It really doesn't make sense, frankly. One thing I was really struck by that, and I'm glad you guys played that entire exchange with Senator Kelly, is he kept saying that throughout the entire hearing. When there was something that he wasn't confirming or denying, he would call it an anonymous smear. He said it over and over. But I was struck by the very last thing that Senator Kelly asked about there. He said absolutely false anonymous smear. It was the one that he actually denied when he didn't deny the other. So I don't know if that was striking to me, frankly. But the senators, frankly, let him get away with that without saying, look, I told you true or false. Is this true or is this false? I will say he completely rejected throughout the entire hearing when Democrats, primarily I think it was all Democrats who asked him about drinking throughout the course of it, he always denied the fact, or he simply did not answer and fell back on, as he called it was liberal media reporting and the smear campaign against him. And he never actually addressed, with the exception of that one question there from Senator Kelly, he never actually addressed the allegations. Instead, he said he was a victim of a smear campaign. Peter.
Yeah, Court, you make a really good point, which is why would there be any need to vow that he'll never have another sip if there wasn't some issue with drinking in the past that he has acknowledged in past podcasts and the like. Gabe, I want to get you in here if I can. You're in West Palm Beach for us right now. You've been keeping in touch with the folks in the Trump transition team. How are they viewing this? What's their reaction to his testimony today?
Well, hi there, Peter. Well, the Trump transition, certainly not popping champagne bottles, but there is a sense of relief here. I spoke with one transition official who said this went smoothly, and another who said that the team was extremely happy that a much larger audience got to see Pete Hegseth and got to see the man that Donald Trump knows, according to this official. Now, this is something, Peter, that the Trump transition has been saying, that once he's able to allegations in front of this larger audience, that he, would be successful. And you heard there from Sahil, with the Republican majority in the Senate, they really feel that he cleared the bar. Now, I did ask them about that exchange with Tim Kaine, and this transition official said, look, it's unfortunate that some politicians feel that they, have to have this holier-than-thou attitude and pretend that they haven't made a mistake. And that's how they're trying to brush off some of those more contentious allegations, that contentious line of questioning from some of those Democratic senators. Again, they feel that Hegseth cleared the bar, that there was no collapse here, Peter.
And Gabe, quickly, I want to turn to the inauguration. We're less than a week away. Inauguration day, just Monday of next week. What more do we know about the preparations?
Well, certainly a lot of security there, Peter, but we're also just learning about who will attend this inauguration. We know that former President Obama will be there, but former First Lady Michelle Obama, we learned today, will not be there. No reason has been given for her absence, but she has gone on record before saying that when she attended the inauguration back in 2016, not an enjoyable experience for her. And also, we're learning that there will be others at that inauguration. Several tech titans will have a very prominent position. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg will be on a very prominent platform right alongside cabinet members, certainly showing how much influence they plan to have in this new administration, Peter.
A presidential changing of the guard. Gabe Gutierrez on the ground for us in West Palm. Gabe, good to see you. Appreciate that.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.